So, as I mentioned in last week's Star Citizen Sunday, there was 3 or 4 posts in regards to the Town Hall event they had in San Antonio. Now, these were all relating to the Persistent Universe, and there were 3 panels, I believe. They had Tony Zurovec, Chris Roberts and Mark Skelton all sat together discussing certain game aspects. Now, they were very, very in-depth as to what they were talking about. Each one lasted roughly about an hour, and I've gone through them and I've nitpicked all the cool little information that may have gotten missed or has not been seen separately on the RSA website. So, with that said, the first panel is called The Path You Choose. Now, this is all about, what you do in the Persistent Universe. So, presenting it was a guy called Jason Hutchins, who is the senior producer for the Persistent Universe. Now, on the panel, there was also Tony Zurovec, Chris Roberts, and Mark Skelton. So, the first question that was asked from Jason, he had collected some questions. I think they may have been community questions, but they may have been ones that they've picked out themselves. The first one was, how customizable is your character going to be? Or is our character going to be? And Mark Skelton started off by saying that there's a lot of focus at the moment on the character customization, and they're going to be very, very flexible. They have been working quite closely with the UK to get this sort of character pipeline set up as well, which I think either there was or there's going to be a UK summit as well in relation to this. So let's tell you about some facts. Now, the way the clothing is going to work is they're going to use a layering system. So you can have a shirt and then put a jacket over the top. You can have it tucked in or untucked. And the same goes for your boots. You can tuck in your trousers into your boots, or you can untuck them. So you have that option as well. And this is all the layering system. You can have layer on layer on layer. I don't know how many. I would expect it would be a normal amount. But they're also using a full body scan. Now, we saw as one of the sneak peeks, I think it was last week. So I think it might have been the week before sneak peek, where this person was dancing naked. It's a full body scan, which means that the body, the face and everything is going to look really, really high res, high fidelity. And they said, look at Rise, for instance. I think it was the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One launch game, the Roman game. They said it's going to be higher than that with the face rig. They got 3 lateral helping who worked on Rise, I believe. And they say that the fidelity in the face is going to look incredible. So they're going to have a face scan and a full body scan. And I think Chris Roberts has been scanned already. But anyway, Chris says that it's impressive. All the character heads are scanned. You can change the head, you can change the jaw, manipulate them. They're scanning all these different people's heads. And then you can manipulate using all these different heads. Your head, your jaw, your eyes, your ears, all sorts of stuff, he says. And he says at an extremely high fidelity. So if Chris Roberts is saying that, then it must be. They're also simulating the muscles on the arm as well with lots of fidelity. So that is going to look cool. He did say it'll be completed in about 2 weeks. So we shall see. He has also partnered with Imaginarium as well, who is Andy Serkis's group. And Andy Serkis is obviously Gollum in the Lord of the Rings films. But they're also investing in that and in Cubic Motion too. So what we see in the hangar, the current character we have, is not the final. He did say that even the first-person module, when it comes out in March, even that's not 100% final. He said it's going to contain bits of this body scan or of the new character model, but it's still not going to be 100%. So even when we see that, that's not exactly how it's going to be. It is going to be brilliant. It's going to be next-gen, like next-gen. Next-gen is what I'm trying to say. So we went back to Mark Skelton, and he was talking about hair, and it's not what we traditionally see. They're looking at something called trace effects, which is spline-based. Now, I say that now for you because if you understand what it is, then you'll understand. I don't, but he did say it's very, very high res. You can change your facial colour, you can have jewellery. Now, they said that you can be thin or fat, but to a degree, because obviously certain seats will not allow you to be overweight or underweight, or tiny. You've got to, there's going to be like a point as which you can get to, so not all the way. Also, there will be tattoos, and they're using ship tech to allow tattoos. So you can, I think it's going to be the same sort of, they say call-outs, but I assume that is sort of decals and stuff you put on your ships. I'm not too sure. And in regards to beards, which I am interested in, because I support the beard community, they're talking about it. It's going to probably be the same tech as what they have for the hair, and Mark did say it will eventually happen, just maybe not 1.0. So the next question that Jason asked was, where do we start the game? And this starts with Tony Zurovec. He says they are 2 versions away from on the PU schedule to selecting a starting planet. So once they've got these next 2 versions of the PU out, we'll be able to select which planet we want to start on, which is very, very cool. I have no idea which one I want to start on yet. Obviously, we've got to see them first and decide for ourselves. But basically, you start in the hangar, and this is going to be the main hub. The hangar will be where everything starts, everything is, you know, this is your home. They also moved on to just say that they're adding to the hangar social module the sim pod, which is a little gateway between Arena Commander and first-person shooter module and your hangar. So the way it is now is your hangar is real life, and then we go into virtual reality, which is Arena Commander. But they'll use the sim pod, which I'll show you a picture of it. It's basically like a little games machine like you find at the arcades, but this is your Arena Commander virtual reality sort of gaming rig in a way. So they're also, for the hangars, they're talking about the room system. And if you don't know, the room system is where they're going to have the hangar divided into separate rooms. You know, you can have your lounge and so forth. He did say there'll be a targeting room, an overclocking room. I'm not sure what that is. If anyone knows what an overclocking room is, please tell me. An entertainment room, and they'll all be added to the hangar someday. He also said there might be an armory for you as well. Now, also, when it comes to the hangar, Chris Roberts has talked about achievements, and it's not going to be your traditional sort of achievements where, you know, you do something and then you get a trophy. Basically, what you can do is maybe take a snapshot from the top of Terra Prime, put it in a frame and put it in your hangar. So it's going to be a trophy that you've managed to literally achieve in a way. It's like an award. So also, Tony Zurovec mentioned that elevators are going to be the transition from the PU to this, well, from your hangar to the city, you know, to the Position Universe city. So it'll also work with the social module where if we want to go to other people's hangars, we get into an elevator and it'll sort of generally take us there. So Jason then started mention about the sim pod as it's being modelled now. Well, it was back then, because they want to get away from that gamey feel, and so we should see that before March, because March is obviously when we get the FPS module, and I assume that this will be how we get into that. So it went back to Tony Zurovec, and they were talking about how, you know, how many ships can you get into the hangar? Will they just expand the hangar? And they said no. They thought about it, but then obviously you'd have so many different rooms in your hangar just for ships, and it wouldn't make sense. You'd have to take the buggy and travel all the way across. So what they're going to have is something called an auto-loading hangar. So you'll have 5 visible ships, but the auto-loader will allow you to decide which ones you have in that hangar to display. And Mark Skelton explained it very much like the Japanese parking structure, where you drive into a bay, get out, and then this bay will lift your car out of the way and put it into storage. And then when you come back to get your car, it'll take it back out of storage and put it back into a parking spot for you to get. So it'll be like that. So you can choose which ones you want to show around and which ones you don't. Now, they also brought up the question of where do the bigger ships stay? Because obviously, currently, I think the Constellation is pretty much the biggest ship we can get in the hangar at the moment. Obviously, it's hangar ready for us, but they did say something like the Retaliator or the Caterpillar is the biggest. But anything bigger than that, like the Address, where would we park it? And generally, you'd park it in orbit, Mark Skelton says, and you'd take a jump ship down. They're not 100% sure how it will work, but this is the idea. Tony Zurovec then says that it's going to be like a big landing pad out in orbit, and Chris Roberts explains that a shuttlecraft will be sitting in your hangar to get you from hangar to the big ship. It'll be like on a jumbo landing pad in a spaceport, and I don't know, there may be fees to be paid, but I'm sure it'll all work out in the end. Anyway, this sounds like a really cool idea. I do like the idea of that, especially if you're approaching in this shuttle to get to your ship. You can probably see your ship as you're approaching it, because it'll just be this huge Address sat there. So I think that's going to be cool. So at this point, Chris Roberts explains that the buggies we have seen, you know, the buggy skins that we can have, because we've repainted the buggies, they're using that paint tech for the buggies for ships. So all these backer skins, I think there was like a shut up and take my money backer skin, and also there's one for pledging at a certain point, you know, like a veteran backer's skin or something, I can't remember. But they're going to use that for these old skins, and they're also going to use it for the new skins. Plus, eventually we'll be able to have the tools ourselves to paint our own ships. So whatever paint design you have in your mind, I'm sure you'll be able to have the ability to do it, or have the option to do it. So the next question that was asked was, can you carry guns into landing zones? Now this is a big question, and I'm sure a lot of people have thought about it, and they also do cover quite a bit about griefing or trolling, you know, people taking the piss basically, which is very good to see, because I know my brother Adam, the other Super Mac brother, he is concerned about this, so I hope this sort of covers some ground. So Tony Zurovec explains that landing zones, they were originally going to be combat free, but they're not anymore. You'll have the ability to carry guns into the landing zones because they feel they don't want it to be boring, because if you're in a landing zone, it'll only be a matter of time before you find all the landing zones so boring, because nothing can happen, nothing out of the ordinary can happen. So in daytime there'll be like a security mechanism in place. The major hubs like Terra, the big ones, the big landing zones that a lot of people visit, will have things like security guards, they'll have security cameras, they'll have turrets, and they'll be so advanced that if you draw your weapon you'll instantly be stunned in some landing areas. Then you'll wake up in hospital, be fined some money. So they thought this might be a good way around it, rather than just deactivating your weapons. See, if they took the weapons away, then all this action in the back alleys, if you have to go down to a really dangerous planet, it won't be dangerous because nothing can happen. So because of this, if you go into the back alley, there may not be security cameras or guards around there. You know, they may just patrol down there once or twice, and then that's it. You've got another 10 minutes before anyone comes back round again. So it wouldn't prevent back alley combat. So that's where if you go down to a back alley, you need to have your weapon in case someone tries to mug you. And it's more of a way to discourage PvP from getting out of control, really. I mean, at night time, there will be less guards. If you do need to go down to an alley, then someone may try and mug you, you know, so you need a weapon. And also, they say it'll keep you on your toes, so you'll end up paying more attention, which is very, very good. And I think it'll keep that in your mind where you'll be on edge. Not in a bad way, but to a point that, you know, you'll be ready for anything. So Chris Roberts also says that terror is not likely, you know, you're not likely to get mugged in the nicer areas. It's not likely to happen there. But in the blocks, which is like the rundown area, then you may. And also Nyx, which is the pirate system, or the first pirate planet we're going to get, pirated place, that it most likely will happen there, you know. So again, like in real life, you avoid certain areas. If you don't want to get attacked, you wouldn't go down to certain areas where people are likely to attack you. You know, you would avoid it in circumstance, unless you have more than one person, you have weapons ready. So Tony does actually explain that it will vary planet to planet and hour by hour. There's more shades of grey rather than just black and white, he says. And the way to prevent trolls is when you land, you'll get scanned at customs, very much like we do in this day and age, and it'll see if you are authorised to carry weapons, and if you're not, you can be turned away. So yeah, if you do draw a weapon and you've been told off about it, then, you know, you could be turned away, or you could have your weapon taken away from you before you enter. So this may not apply to places like Nyx, or it's just the nicer places you'll get scanned. There'll be, you know, different variations of scans upon different places. So he did say that Arc Core may have like low-end turrets and may not fire instantly or accurately. So, you know, it's not just going to be like you're drawing a weapon, bang, you're dead, or you've been shocked. It's going to be like, you know, you could have a chance to get away with it and you may cause some damage, but eventually you're going to have a lot of things to deal with before you can escape. So as he says, you can get your license to carry weapons revoked, and if you do, then obviously you know you're going to have to walk the streets without a weapon. So it is a bit of a way of stopping people from trolling. And if you are a troller, then, you know, it's going to make it more of a challenge for you. But also, if you do it too much, if you are constantly shooting people, then you could be revoked for 24 hours, or you could just be kicked from the whole, you know, banned from the location for 24 hours if you continue doing it, like. So matchmaking also plays a part, Chris Roberts says, and it will instance certain players. So they said that they'll put grievers into grieving pools. So if you are someone who likes to troll, then you will be put in an instance with trolls. So you will end up just trolling each other, and everyone else that wants to play the game normally can do that. So either way, everyone wins. Also, they didn't mention it, but something called PvP, PvE sliders, which the veterans will know about, but people who don't know much about this will never have heard of it. It's basically, you can choose between 1 to 90%, because you can never get 100% on this, whether you want 90% PvP or 90% PvE, but you can slide it up and down, so you can have 10%, 5%, 20% either way. So this will determine how many real players and how many NPC players you will come across. And I think it's a good way. You can never have it all the way though, so you're never going to always avoid real players. Now they did say that if a mugger tries to mug you and you whip out your pistol and shoot him, there's going to be ways and means to determine that you were not the aggressor there. I don't know, they didn't specify what it was, but don't worry, if you get mugged, you could probably provoke someone into drawing a weapon, a real player, but there will be ways to determine this, so we'll just have to wait and see for that one. But they did say, you know, to take away the whole option to carry weapons would just be really missed, and it's not just a shopping interface, it's a living environment. They want it to be real. So also Tony Zarevek just mentioned that LZs are not the same as what you've seen before. The population will change due to the planet wealth. But anyway, let's move on. So, next question is, what can we do in shops and on landing zones? And Tony Zarevek again starts off with the idea of clothing shops. Obviously, you can outfit your character. Now, he did say about robbing bars, and if you are out of the view of the cameras, you can go up and steal money from the cash register. But Chris did sort of cut in and say it's a bad example because cash isn't likely to be the main source of currency, as it's more likely to be like some sort of card payment system. So that makes perfect sense. But the idea is you can rob places, you can, you know, knock off shops and so forth. So there's a lot to do on the planet. It's not just going to be, like he said before, a hub, you know, a shopping interface. Now, Mark Skelton did chip in about the clothing concept because they had an image up. I'll try and get it up there for you. But this was to do with the layering system. And NPCs will be the clothing will be environment specific. So in a nice environment, it'll be high-end clothing. And then obviously if you get into like the darker areas, there'll be hoods and covers and it'll be a bit all dingy and scary. But if you see someone wearing something on the street, you will be able to buy that somewhere. It's not just a one-off thing for that character. It's something that if you see anyone wearing it, NPCs or real players, then you have the option to buy that. And they did mention that Mark Skelton's gold shirt may be expensive and rare, but they were just kidding, so we don't know yet. So they started talking about different types of shops, and we know of Astro Armada, which is like a ship seller. It's a high-end, think like a Ferrari dealership, they say, and it looks really cool, but again, it's not finished. I'll see if I can find any videos or any images of it. It's not finished. Chris Roberts said that the Planetside module at South by Southwest will be released after that, so we can expect to see it once South by Southwest is done, and we'll see the shops, etc. Now, they will have about 9, 10 or 11 shops available at the end of the year, and they will obviously expand over time. Currently, they're about 50 to 60% complete. I think Dumper's Depot is a bit further on, and we've seen that. I'll show you again a clip of Dumper's Depot. This is like a scraps sort of used parts, and it's not pristine parts, but, you know, you get better prices. You've got Cubby Blast, which is your personal weapon store, and we've seen that in the Moby Glass on my latest Star Citizen Sunday. This was where all the weapons are. In the module, you won't be able to purchase them, but it'll allow you to get to grips with how the UI works and how, you know, walking around the shops work and just generally how they'll look. So when it comes to purchasing things, Chris says that you will use the Moby Glass, and I explained this in the last Star Citizen Sunday. You'll look at a physical item, and using the augmented reality with the Moby Glass, you can buy that item and then it'll be found in your hangar, so you're not having to cart off with hundreds of weapons. And I think the way it's going to work is that if you buy a weapon, you can have that on you. You can have maybe a handgun, you can have a rifle, but I don't think it's going to be where you can just have all these weapons somewhere and then you scroll up on the wheel like on Grand Theft Auto and then you bring it out of your ass. You know, it's going to be what you carry is what you see on you is what you're carrying. So you may only be able to have, and I hope this is true, you only have 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most weapons available to you, because it's realistic and it'll make you really think about what weapon to take on what job. And I really want that, because you can get all sorts of scopes, silencers, torches, all sorts of additions for them. So I'm really looking forward to that. Now, if you're buying clothing and you don't want to swap anything out or, you know, change your clothing for what you've just bought, they'll send it to the hangar. And again, your hangar is your home and it's a place for all these items, so you don't have to just buy something and be wearing it instantly. So Chris Roberts just mentions that Cubby Blast is not a chain, Astro Armada is, and Dumper's Depot is. And it just sort of goes on to explain that some shops are obviously big chains and you'll find them everywhere, not generally in the same condition as Terra to Nick's system. You know, you may find like a Dumper's Depot on Nick's, but it won't be in as good a condition as Terra's. But then you obviously get some unique shops which are location specific, so if there's somewhere that you really like and you get a good deal, or you always find something you want, you will have to venture off there to find it, which is really cool again. And apparently ArtCore will show off a variety of stores. They'll have bars and they'll have hospitals. And hospital, if you're wondering, is where you would respawn if you die or if you get mugged or if you're unconscious and so forth. This is, I don't know about unconscious, I made that up, I don't know why I said that. But this is where you will respawn. So they did mention something called the Trade Division. Now this, well, there was another word, Trade something division. Now this is where you would get missions from, Tony says. It's where you'd find commodity prices. He said it's a really attractive shop because you can see ships landing, cargo being taken out and moved around. It's going to be a very bustling area with this sort of thing. And again, it's not all going to be really good. It'll be flashy in Terra, but again, run down in other planets. It'll be where you clear your missions, you get jobs to haul cargo, again, sell and buy goods to trade. It's the broker of Star Citizen, and this will be seen throughout the verse, but again, depending on where you are, depends on how nice and clean it will be. Now, jobs, this is the last sort of section about this panel, and Tony Zurovec, awesome guy, got really carried away with what he was talking about, and he gave some really good information about, and it's all like, basically jobs are what you want to do. There's no sort of, there's areas of grey between occupation. You don't have to be a specific thing. You don't have to think, I want to be that guy, I'll be him. You can then, you know, you can do trade runs, and then maybe the next day you can do a bit of combat or mercenary work, or then the other day you could just put on a hood and be a pirate or whatever. You know, it's so in depth. And he picked up on things called mercenary missions, sort of a paid gun for hire, which will involve combat. And when you accept a mission, that mission isn't gone for other people. There may be, like, depending on how many people are needed for the mission, others can choose the same mission as other players. And say, like, you know, if you're outfitted for a combat mission to take out a pirate base, you head off to there, but so do other players. And so your pay will be due to how much you have contributed to this. So if you had to take out a space station with pirates, if you get a couple of kills, you'll be paid accordingly for those couple of kills compared to someone who maybe didn't get any kills or someone who got 50 kills, which I think is quite fair. You know, it makes you work harder. Now, there will be things like defensive missions, say defending stations, space stations, or protecting freighters. There'll be retrieval missions, maybe a person you need to find and take out of there, or an artifact. There'll also be rescue operations. So like as a medic, it's not always about being in the battlefield and healing people. You may need to head off to a space station which is close to a star and it's starting to blow up on itself, you know, whatever they call it. You'll have to manual dock and infiltrate this base to find scientists and then get them out of the area. Also, there may be a job to patrol battled sort of areas, tractoring people into your cargo hold and getting them back to safety, you know, real players and NPCs if there's been a big battle going on. Now, Chris Roberts again says there's no role picking, you do what you want to do and what mission you choose. However you've equipped your ship, there's non-combat roles like rescue and mining. And again, Tony Zurovec went in about mining and it just sounds brilliant. He says there's a benefit to having multiple players, either NPC or real. It's not a completely safe job because you're injecting energy into asteroids containing volatile materials, he says, and sometimes compressed gases, which can blow them apart by accident if you're not careful or doing your job right. So let's say, you find an asteroid field, so you have your pilot or someone scanning, looking for, I think it was a dedicated scanner operator, looking for the appropriate asteroid to mine. Once he finds the right components that you're looking for, that is needed in the economy or what you've been asked to get, you will have beam operators who will be directing mining lasers into asteroids to extract these fragments. And then the cargo loading operator will seek these fragments using a repulsor or an attractor, not a tractor, but an attractor beam, and he can push or pull these fragments according to which one he needs, or he thinks is the right fragment. And they did say that he'll be looking out the cargo hold, but that's just a little snippet that I thought I'd put in there. So beam operations, he says, will the people with the mining beams, they will have a bit of work to do in the sense that they are monitoring the exothermic reaction detector and managing the energy produced, because you need to have the right amount of energy, otherwise it could cause chain reactions or it could explode dangerous gases and so forth. And also seismic activity is there as well when mining. If you're sort of mining some sensitive materials to vibrations, these micro tremors from the beams can just explode, so obviously, like, the pilot is sort of rotating around these asteroids looking for the right things, and then you'll have something like a refining operator who will convert ore into minerals or materials. The mining sounds really cool, and it's not just going to be one of these simple, let's just, for instance, Minecraft. It's not going to be something as simple as that, and I don't think it's going to be as simple as something like Eve. I've never played it, but I've been told it gets boring after a while, so it's going to be in depth. And Chris Roberts says that with players, you can harvest more, you can get a much greater return with it, but you can do it on your own. You don't need to have people with you. You can have a little ship with all the same equipment but on a smaller scale and do it yourself. But obviously you cannot sort of keep tabs on how things are getting sort of dangerous. You need real players in reality or an NPC crew in order to see what's going on. But it doesn't have to be real players. You can have NPCs that you must pay monthly. And again, like Grand Theft Auto, when you're looking for a crew to do a bank job, if you find someone who's cheap, then he is likely to be not as aware as what's going on than if you pay for someone of a higher quality, but then obviously they get a higher cut. But you're more likely to find things. So it's about balancing what is more important. Is it more important to have someone who has got a laser beam, who's likely to blow up the place, compared to someone who is actually trying to search for the right materials or the right fragments which contains the money? It's such a difficult idea, so training will be needed for this sort of thing, and also Chris Roberts says that NPCs will learn the more you have with them. So you could have someone who isn't very good or very skilled and you pay less, but so long as they don't die, he can train up and his stats will train in the background. You won't know what the stats are, but he'll get better at this. So that's really good. Now, final note was that Tony Zurovec says that there will be like mini games or mechanics for things, which will require a little skill to a degree, some more than others I expect. He said it's not just like flipping a switch and then your ore is refined. He did also mention about the Pioneer or the Explorer sort of career, and it's not going to be one-off missions. Maybe you find an asteroid field and then you can let that information out to people who then will come and mine there. Maybe, you know, you need to find a comet for scientists to examine, and then the science mission will come in where you need to have a 30-second video of a comet's tail for certain reasons, or identifying derelict ship for salvages. All these missions will have danger, but it won't always be combat orientated. So that was pretty much all they said for the panel number 1 of Choose Your Path. Please, please, please tell me your thoughts on all this. This is some really cool information that I have never heard of before. So tell me your thoughts on everything. I want to hear your ideas and your opinions. Anyway, I'll leave it as probably a one-off video for now, and then I'll do the next panel as a separate video because these are going to be long, long videos. So don't forget to subscribe for any more Star Citizen, plus Star Citizen Sunday every Sunday, which fulfills all the news from last week. Comment, as I said, like the video if you can, share it if you can. We have a Patreon page as well, so if you want to support our channel, please do, and I shall see you in the verse.